On this episode of the Ask Mike Reinold Show, we talk about how we deal with chronic medial epicondylitis that just doesn't seem to get better. The Ask Mike Reinold Show. Helping people feel better, move better, and perform better. Welcome back, everybody, to the latest episode of the Ask Mike Reinold Show. We're up at Champion PT Performance up in Boston, Massachusetts. Mike Scaduto, Lenny Macrina, Dave Tilley, Dan Pope here answering all your amazing questions. PT, fitness, sports performance, business, gymnastics, anything. What else?
Game of Thrones. I cannot wait to see what the finale's like. Cannot wait to see the finale
Totally
at some point in the next few years.
Do you want to make some predictions?
Yeah, make some good predictions on it. That's not gonna. It's like
on
first
Kepka.
Awesome, Len. Who do we have for students today?
We have Cara May Arya Sheft. We're going to give her a Game of Thrones name, Arya Sheft.
This is going to be like midsummer.
She comes to us from Belmont University in Nashville. And a fact about Cara May Sheft is she grew up in the farms of New Jersey where she went cow tipping every weekend. Nick Acapello from Toro University, Toro the Bull.
The Bull!
Where they specialize in lawn care. If you need any of your lawn care needs, contact Nick Acapello in Toro College in New York. He'll help you out and get a new lawnmower.
Do you think any of your professors will
Fun fact about Nick is he does it all with Nick does all the lawn care with a single pair of scissors. The whole thing.
Wow.
Blade by
Seems
blade.
inefficient. So perfect.
All right, take it away,
All right.
Cara May.
We have
Well, that rhymed. It's pretty good.
I just think of Billy Madison who's like, down by the bay, I just made. On golf joke.
Pretty good Billy Madison reference right there.
All right, we have Janine from Tacoma, Washington. What suggestions do you have for treating medial epicondylitis? I find there are connections to shoulder stability and rotator cuff engagement strength. I also have worked with subscapularis, teres major, lats, and triceps motor release via acupuncture and instrument-assisted soft tissue mobilization. What is your opinion on this stubborn condition?
What's her name again?
Janine,
good question on medial epicondylitis. I mean, definitely a very stubborn one, like you said. So it sounds like you have found some success by treating proximal, right? By treating the shoulder, working on some stuff there, and you found some success, and I think that's great. I still think there's a bunch of other things that probably go into medial epicondylitis, especially when you're talking, like you just said here, you're clearly talking about like a chronic one, like that lingering one, that kind of keeps coming back. I think that's a little different. Anybody can, go paint a bedroom for a weekend out of nowhere and get an acute medial epicondylitis that goes away in a week, and I don't think any of us struggle with that. It's more about that, like unrelenting. That's a big word we use. We use that in journal articles a lot.
Wow.
Unrelenting
Pain.
Yeah, pain that you can have from chronic. So, all right, who wants to start? Chronic medial epicondylitis.
Golfer's elbow. Let's go with the golfer.
Treatment strategy.
Fun fact about golfer's elbow.
I was gonna say, how many golfers really get this?
Yeah, so medial epicondylitis, known as golfer's elbow, you're actually, as a golfer, you're 5 times more likely to get lateral epicondylitis, which is tennis elbow.
Wow.
So
500 times?
Well, 5 times.
So 500%. 500%?
Dang, I'm never picking a golf club.
Typically happens, you get lateral epicondylitis on your lead arm and medial on the trail arm. That's the typical presentation. But yeah, so it's
I just had
just fun facts.
A great idea for a new weekly segment in the podcast episode is Fun Facts by Mike Scaduto.
Fun facts with Mike Scaduto.
It's all day long.
Yeah.
This guy can win any Jeopardy.
That's related to physical therapy.
That's
Usually
awesome.
they're not. But.
And he's actually really good, and he does it so well that we have no idea if it's accurate or if he's completely just making it up. So,
It's like a human
fun fact.
Human Snapplecast.
So, new podcast. We're going to do a whole new podcast. Fun Facts by Mike Scaduto
Alright.
and Jack Handy.
Yeah,
No
I
reference to
think
age.
part of what I've found treating these injuries is figuring out whether it's a repetitive microtrauma injury or true chronic pain in the tendon. So are they doing things that are aggravating the tendon on a daily basis that are just restarting that process, and that's why it's nagging? it's nagging them for so long. So someone like who I've treated that had medial epicondylitis, who was a golfer, we looked at their practice schedule, and we found out that they were practicing golf too much. We know that puts a lot of stress on the flexor pronator. We know the impact force of hitting off a driving range mat is high through the medial elbow. So we kind of reduced some of those things, reduced the acute trauma to the elbow, and then treated it through progressive loading of the tendon in those structures. So I don't know. That's one thing to kind of differentiate.
That's a good one. I like that. So everybody always wants to look for a magic treatment when sometimes the answer is by doing less. Not what can we do, but what can they do less of, right? Because it's often a workload management thing. I like it. That's good.
Yeah.
Is that good? Yeah. All right.
Yep.
I wasn't sure if you would keep going there. All right. Anyway, who else got some good tidbits on medial epicondylitis? I know Dan Pope does.
I love elbows.
Yeah. Those tendons.
Well, I kind of see a weird population. I don't say weird, but I see a lot of fitness people. Right?
Pretty weird.
Yeah, pretty weird.
Sorry, if anyone's
that's
listening.
okay. Yeah. It's similar to golf, though. I mean, you have to know the sport. You have to. I think a lot of times when people come to us, they're coming to us because they've tried other PTs. And I'm not trying to bash all other PTs, but I think the big thing is that sometimes they don't understand what the athlete is dealing with and what they want to do on a regular basis. What I tend to see is people with medial elbow pain that happens with a lot of pull-ups, a lot of ring work, so trying to hold an aggressive false grip, right? And also rope climbs, just because it puts so much stress right in this area here.
Mm-hmm.
So two things. I think for one, unloading is a big part of that. So if you understand the movements that really cause a whole bunch of pain and irritation, we can back off of those. The other piece is that I am really interested in trying to load this as much as I can to get it stronger, right? And in some cases, I think, what we've done a little bit in terms of the shoulder, and I think a little bit in the knee too, is that we get so excited about the proximal muscles. It's like, oh, let's work the shoulder. For Achilles tendinopathy, let's work the glutes. For knee pains, let's work the glutes. But I do think that we have to make sure we really load up this area well. It has to be specific to the movements the person wants to get back to. So a lot of times I'll just do a lot of false grip ring rows, so we're actually doing almost the same exact stress, but at a lower level, and then we change the dosage some. So let's say we're not doing it a ridiculous dosage on one day during the week, which sometimes happens to these athletes. If the workout pops up, that's just a ton of stress in that area, but we are stressing it on more frequent basis, let's say 3 times a week, but less volume and one specific dosage, I guess.
Yeah.
The other thing too is I just was working with a swimmer with medial elbow pain, and I think for those folks, they probably need to get stronger in the shoulder, but in a really specific way, right? So if you're like doing like a crawl stroke, freestyle stroke, we're basically doing some internal rotation of the shoulder at a funky angle, and I basically gave them that exercise specifically for the shoulder because I think that's a movement that the shoulder needs to be able to handle, but same thing with the tendon. So I think the specificity is going to be really important, but it's I don't know, no secret. It's kind of like figuring out what the person needs, unloading and then reloading appropriately.
Right, so in unloading only because there's an acute flare-up, right? That's in just to, take the key parts of that up there, and then reintroducing the load, but in a more gradual nature.
Yeah, I think the other thing though is that unloading is not necessarily unloading. Unloading is maybe not the right word, but changing that dosage some, because I almost never
deloading.
Yeah, deloading, because I'm sometimes I'm actually increasing the total stress on that area,
right?
But just in a smaller doses, more frequently throughout the course of the week.
Right, sure.
Just not having these big spikes, which ends up irritating people and not having people heal over the course of time.
Right,
so.
and most adults aren't trying to do ring work as their profession.
No.
So what they're doing is they're going to the gym for an hour and they're scuffling and they want to get better at it because they're competitive at it and they're just overdoing it, and then it's just too much.
Yeah.
So awesome. Anything else? Anybody else want to jump in?
Yeah, I think the dosage is very important for the general world, like you were kind of alluding to. Unfortunately, a lot of people have like trades or jobs where they require gripping all day long or overhead work and gripping, and I think that is where I used to see a lot of people have a tough time, is they didn't know how to do their job without using their elbow. So I think it comes down to just finding alternative strategies to use, your other hand, use somebody else, try to change the work of a daily requirement so you can maybe break it up into smaller chunks. I think that some people have more issues with their trade than their workout sometimes. So you gotta be creative sometimes with how they can do that, because obviously they have to make money that way.
I'm personally living like this with my wife. She's got lateral epicondylitis. She's not a golfer, but she teaches fitness classes, so her elbow is just flamingly hot right now for weeks, if not months, and she's screaming at me that I'm not helping her, but she teaches every day, multiple classes a day, so it's a struggle. So
it's kind of interesting that I kind of wanted to throw it at Dave and then Mike jump in right here. Let me ask you a question, Dave. If somebody has been doing the same job for 20 years, right? Why do you think that job overloaded them? Because let's say their workload hasn't changed. They should be quite accustomed to the stress of that job. What's changed?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things too. I think there's definitely an aspect of just age tends to just treat tendons a little bit not as friendly, don't recover as well.
That's true, yeah.
The hydration status of the tendon might not be as good, blood flow, whatever it is. But I also do think that as people do more of their job for longer, they typically have to, spend less time on things to prepare them for it. So most people who are working don't wake up and warm up to go to work. You know what I mean? They don't have a routine, something like that. So I think some people just kind of like dive into a large project. I'm only thinking of people I treat like construction workers in my first job. People should literally just drive to work and start hanging sheetrock for 5 hours. So sometimes just literally giving them like a morning routine to get their elbow ready for that is important. Of like a little bit of heat, soft tissue care before they go, stretching, just basic stuff that we would do in an athlete. They have never really been accustomed to. They just think I wake up and I work. So sometimes I think that the progressive nature of how much volume they're doing in large jobs is an issue.
I don't know if this is what Mike was getting at, but I do think that there is, like if you do a sport, right, and this is very well documented, it's like, at least in the tendon research, the more you do a specific activity, the more likely you are to have like a tendinopathy, right? Whether or not that tendinopathy causes pain is another story, but the other part is that you do wear and tear on your body by doing things, right? You know what I mean? So I think that there's an idea that, okay, if we have the right dosage of everything, we'll be A-okay. But I think the other part is that we're constantly wearing our bodies, and our bodies are meant to wear, but every once in a while things are just going to get more painful. Like a runner is going to have more Achilles pain generally than a regular person on the streets, just because they're stressing that tendon,
All the
and
time.
maybe they have great programming and appropriate, but just you're stressing that area, after a while your body's going to be like, whoa, it's a lot of stress. We have to be careful. Sometimes it gives you pain, right? Or you have something breaks down. So
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, and putting you guys both together, like, tissues change over time. So, if you've been doing a job for 20 years, your tendon looks a lot different than it did 20 years ago, right? But you're doing the same load every day. So the only thing I'd add, and I'm kind of surprised nobody brought this up right now. I mean, the number one thing for, cervical. I mean, the number one thing when it's unrelenting and you can't figure out why it's not getting better, I almost go cervical. Maybe I go cervical too often, but I think it's like cervical. And then you always say the analogy to the person, like, look, like, so if something's happening cervical and you're getting, it's a 5-lane highway and one of your lanes has traffic and you got 4 lanes of information going down instead of 5, you're still living life at 100%, right? But you only have 80% coming down from your neck. You're technically overloading your body now at 20%. It just comes down to a workload thing. Even though what you are doing hasn't changed, the capacity of your elbow has dropped 20%, so your workload is now 20% too high. Anytime something isn't getting better and we adjust the workloads appropriately, which I think we nailed, which is probably what we would do first every time, it's still not getting better, I think we got to figure out what's going on. So I don't know. I mean, anybody disagree that neck's like a, I don't know, May? May's on board. Yeah, good. Awesome. All right, good question, good episode. I appreciate that one. Head to MikeReinold.com, click on that podcast link, and you can ask more questions like that. And be sure to go to iTunes and Spotify to rate, review, and subscribe to this so we can keep doing these cool episodes for you guys. Thanks so much. Take care.